Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can find so many good things, including our free Sunday gathering, which is an inspirational service, but there's a medium demonstration included. It's pretty great. We have medium and other classes happening weekly. We also have a fantastic Facebook group, so you can find new friends that believe in this topic. I also have a Patreon community with between this show and my show on iHeartRadio, which is called Shades of the Afterlife, have now well over 650 hours of episodes on the afterlife. So you get episodes before other folks do, and you get a full list that you can click on of all my episodes. So if you're interested in that, wedon'tdie.com. Of course, there's more good things there as well. Today, we're going to talk about a near-death experience with our guest, Ellen Wier, and how her experience ongoingly connects people to their own higher selves for healing, for messages of hope, and for their spiritual expansion. Ellen is a highly acclaimed spiritual coach, sound healer, intuitive, and board-certified music therapist. She is the author of the book Waking Up in Heaven, Living with Purpose Through Afterlife Wisdom. Her work has been featured in Jack Canfield's books and on the award-winning documentary Beyond the Grave. You can find out more about Ellen at her website, which is wellnessmusictherapy.com. Let's hear Ellen's story now and discover her passion for music in healing. Ellen, welcome to We Don't Die.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited you're here too. And for our listeners, you can't see beautiful Ellen, but she's got a beautiful smile on her face, and she's a beautiful gal. Well, my friend, where in the world are you, first of all, as we're talking?
I'm in San Diego, and it's a beautiful place right now. The weather's perfect. That's where we are.
That's nice. You're mere 3,000 miles away from me. I'm on the East Coast in Rhode Island, the little state of Rhode Island. So let's hear about you. I know your story personally, but our audience does not. Take us back, way back to those teenage years and what happened.
I was 12 years old and I loved to ride horses. And on this particular day, the cinch wasn't completely tight enough. And, horses like to expand their belly when you're putting the saddle on. So this horse had expanded its belly and the cinch was loose. And during the lesson, I felt the saddle slipped and I fell off the horse, and the horse reared up and kicked me in the right temple out of fear. And from there, I was taken to a local hospital. I was out of consciousness, and then I was care flighted or care sent to Waco. And that's where my story kind of began. I was comatose in the hospital. They said I was very deeply within the coma, and they invited my parents to play movies at my bedside, anything they could do to stimulate the mind. And so my father chose a Disney movie that was predominantly classical music. And that's kind of where the story begins, right? I found myself on a raft of sorts. It was this pink clouds all around me and this wooden raft. And in front of me was Jesus, who I knew. I recognized Jesus. And to my left was a man in long brown robes. He was thinner. He had a bald head. He had no shoes on his feet. And I didn't know who he was, but I felt completely safe and connected in this space. I felt held. I felt protected. And there was no communication at that first kind of landing on the other side. But from there, I was lifted out of that experience into first this bright white realm that I don't talk much about because it was such a small part of my experience, but it had different colored streams and trees, and there was this pervasive love and music. There was this music that I never heard and never have again that was otherworldly, other instruments, beautiful, all pervasive. Like this place was music. And then the thing I remember most is the experience of the golden light. And I call it the golden light because this place really didn't even have a name. It was an experience, a feeling of wholeness, a feeling of love, of completeness. There was a there was an energy to it that was almost weighted. And the best I can describe it is it was a weighted blanket. It was this fullness that wrapped around my soul body. I didn't have a body there. I didn't have a mind. There was nothing but love, right? That's all it was. It was nothing but love. It was this experience of being whole. And I remember the fullness of that light wrapping around me. And then I just expanded. I became the light. That light wrapped around me, and I became that fullness. And that was the experience I believe I was meant to have. I left that place sometime after. I could have been there lifetimes, right? But I left and went back into this transitional place, I guess, on the raft, this wooden raft. And that time, Jesus communicated with me through his thoughts. And I was given a choice. I could either stay or I could come back. And I wanted to stay, honestly. I felt so whole, and like that was the reality of that was real. And this human life was like imagined. That's how it felt. I wanted to stay, but I was so shown the trajectory of my father's life, and that he wouldn't actualize his life on this planet if I were to choose to stay. And even though there was no right or wrong, and that's something I want to tell people, there was no right or wrong. I could have chosen to stay and it would have been okay. And it would have worked out, and everything was good and beautiful. Everything was for the greater good. But I chose to come back. I chose to heal people with music. And that's when I was given human feeling. That's when I was giving knowledge. I was downloaded with all of this information about why we're here, why now, what is important. It isn't important that what we focus on this planet actually is a distraction from reality. A lot of the things we think about are actually taking us away and distracting us from our presence. But in that moment, I remember I was so grateful to live. And I was given all of this information that I made a vow that I would make my life count. You know, this is kind of what I think about it now, but the vow was very simple. I want to go back and I will heal people with music. I will use music to help people. That was my vow. And I also made one other vow, and it was to give gratitude for every life experience, no matter what, because I knew it was all, we were guided, we were protected. It was all meant to happen. It was all from love. And right after I made those two simple vows, I went into this darkness, but it was this welcoming darkness. It was like womb-like, maybe. And I saw this musical staff in the distance in the dark, and each note was a different color. And we've heard about this kind of ability to see color through music. And some people have this skill. Well, in that moment, I could see it, but I couldn't hear anything. And the music was animated. It was, you know, the notes were moving on the staff, and it got bigger and bigger as it got closer and just went right through me. And it was at that moment that I heard something, and it was almost inaudible. I could barely hear it. It would be something where you would think, am I crazy? What do I hear? But my soul attached to that sound, and that sound became everything in the cosmos, in the universe, everything. And it was music. And as I focused on that sound, I realized now I was pulling myself back into my body through music. And I allowed the sound to become more clear and more distinct and louder until finally it was so loud in my head that the only thing I could do was open my eyes to escape it. And it was not easy to just force my eyes open, but I did it. And then I was in the ICU, and the nurse came running over, and I caught a glimpse of the rolling cart. You know, back in the 80s, they rolled the cart over, and there was a movie playing bedside, a classical music movie with 90% classical music. And it was Tchaikovsky, and it woke me up from the coma. And from that moment on, I did not know how, I didn't know where, but I knew I had come back to heal people with music. And I found that later in my life through many mystical experiences and guidance from source that led me to a school called Naropa University, which was founded by by Trungpa Rinpoche, and very connected with the Dalai Lama and very immersed in Buddhist philosophy. So at this school, I had my why from my near-death experience, but I went to the school for transpersonal counseling psychology, which is spiritual psychology, have a master's in that and a master's in music therapy. I was walking up to meditation class the first week or so of school, and I saw a depiction of a Buddha that was younger and bald and thin and had long brown robes. And I knew without a doubt, and I had had a feeling before that, but I knew without a doubt in that moment that Buddha was the figure, the other master that was there to guide me and meet me on the other side. And it was through that training that I learned about a process using music and imagery that allows people to connect to their higher self, that takes them out of the thinking mind, that connects them on a transpersonal level to the other side. And the first time I experienced that, I thought, this is the closest I will ever come to my NDE in my living life. And when you've had an NDE and you've experienced that love, you want to find it again. And that reintegration into human is not always easy. And so when I experienced that, I knew that I wanted to bring it to other people. I wanted them to experience it for themselves. And that's what I do. Naropa gave me my how. And I've developed that process through downloads that I continue to receive about my work and frequency and sound, and even the water element within our body and how it transports light. All of these things, they just come together over and over again. And I've developed a beautiful process using that. And I love it. And that's my story in a nutshell. I mean, there's so much
I
more.
know, I know. Thank you for sharing that. I feel you getting very moved by
Yeah.
your words. Do you remember this near-death experience like it was just yesterday?
Yes. Like it was yesterday. It's the most powerful, vivid experience I have had in my life. And it's kind of funny because I wasn't really alive at that moment. I was alive, but I was out of my human body and experience. And I lost all my memory before that accident. When I came back, I didn't know things. I didn't know who people were. I had to relearn a little bit how to walk and talk, and that I learned very quickly that I did not know consciously what the heck people were talking about. I mean, I was a head injured 12-year-old who had no clue about the world at all. I came back like everything was new, everything was exciting, everything was intimidating, everything was big, and I had to learn quickly to connect with people through their soul. And so it was a gift to me because when I came back, I didn't understand half of what the world was talking about, but I understood energy. And so I developed that skill and I learned to connect with people outside of the story because we get lost in the story so often. The story becomes our reality. We believe our story. And that's part of what I was shown on the other side is that we create our reality through our thoughts. And if we constantly are believing what our human is saying, we're missing the bigger picture. And so that was my first training. And I talk about in my book how I developed that intuitive skill of bringing messages through without necessarily knowing that they were messages or and even like trying to kind of hide that they were messages for people because my teenage friends didn't understand the language I was speaking with or the perspective, but they still loved it. I just had to be very careful with how I presented it at the time.
Yeah, hard to be a kid anyways, and then to have this on top of it. That emotion that you're feeling that got you all choked up, I'm sensing it's the love that you felt that not only that did you want to feel that again, but you
Yeah.
also want to share that with other people. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's everything to me. I mean, I found through the years that there's a beautiful, vulnerable, authentic moment that you can share with people when they realize for themselves what is on the other side. And you don't have to tell them about it because you can provide the experience that shows it to them directly. And to me, that's a bigger gift than coming back with an ability to like, quote, heal people with music, as I vowed to come back and do. To allow people to connect with their God energy, their highest self, the highest, greatest good with the light. I mean, what could be better? That's a dream. That is a life. How do I get to live this life? I'm so thankful. I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful that I came back. I'm thankful that I got the choice and to do the work that I do.
And we're thankful you're here today. This is something new. There's different things that open up for people when they have a near-death experience. Not all, but people have had some really interesting spiritual experiences and gifts that seem to open up. And music is something that we can all have at our fingertips, so to speak. How can we get started on this? Because who you're speaking to right now, Ellen, are people that are interested in evidence of the afterlife, but so many come because their heart has been shattered, that can't even feel like they can breathe because it hurts so bad, and would like nothing more than to know their loved ones still around, and that there's so much more to us. And also, I'm a human, you're a human. Living life is hard work.
Yeah.
You get these moments of pleasure, but the rest of it just seems to be brutal sometimes. And not only that, as you're facing the your own mind, right, with
Yeah.
these negative thoughts, and it's a scary place to be by yourself, and that's where we are.
Yeah.
How can we get started on this? Of course, all will love to read your story in your book, but what tools can you give us today that can help us and get us started on that journey of connection?
There are so many things we can do. And you're right, we're in a challenging time, not just through our personal journeys, which take us through the shatter element and the challenges of life, the contrast of life. We are given the opportunity to choose a way of responding to contrast in love or fear. And when we choose love, we're raising our frequency. I really believe that much of what we're going through and our life experience that we chose and that we stepped into, I fully believe that is to help us expand our soul and grow our connection with that universal light, divine love. And to recognize that we have the creative power to call that energy in to create what we want to create on this planet. I fully believe that. I saw it. It was told to me. I've seen it in people. And I was shown a vision one time, and then I'll talk about what I think we can do as listeners. I was shown this vision of the vibrations of the light and how big these vibrations are and how they came together to create, and we are part of smaller vibrations within this tapestry, this universal symphony of vibration. And it was shown to me that we as humans are needed to expand that light, to expand that vibrational element of the divine light through our creative process, through talking, through creating food, to presenting to music and art, however we express ourselves, through movement, right? And every exchange that we have with each other creates more of those smaller vibration. So it was shown to me this greater tapestry, and that we are needed to call in that light, to create something bigger, to create within life, and to allow that light source to live through our human experience. And I believe that we are connected to also the vibration of the earth. And in creating in our personal lives and in connecting to each other, we create more energy that lifts the earth up. This is all about frequency. It's about raising our frequency. And we get to a point that our frequency is so high that we can start to call in all those things that we dreamed of, that we want to co-create. And so anything that people can do to raise their frequency is connecting to the light. I use so many things: music, sound vibration, meditating increases our frequency. When we release our thoughts, releasing your thoughts one by one, just letting them go, and then recognizing that we are not what we think, right? We are what we think, but we're not what we think. We are more than that, and we can release those thoughts as not being a guiding force. I use essential oils every day. I use them to raise my frequency. They're some of the highest frequency oil substances on the planet. I pair them with affirmations. I am affirmations will raise your frequency. All of these small practices, breath work, anything that aligns with you, that brings your soul joy, where you feel free and creative and open, All of these things can be practices. I like the questions of releasing to source my intention every day. I would use an oil, I would breathe it, and I would release all my worries and fears to my higher presence and say, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? These questions allowed me to release with the out breath any expectation of outcome and simply invite my presence to move into my human body and take over. Because we have free will. We can invite that presence to flow through us, to create through us, to live through us. And we don't have to hold all of those like issues of control and fear that we bring through in our thoughts. So those questions are from the Course of Miracles. I think they were reiterated by Marianne Williamson. They're powerful questions, but there are so many things you can do. If you're into movement, you can invite your body to show you your yes and your no. You can connect with that presence. You can ask your higher self, God energy, the divine, whatever you call it, you can ask that energy to just take the load off of you. You don't have to hold it. One of my favorite mentors and I love her, Lilia, she told me, Ellen, what are the two experiences that you had on the other side? What are the two feelings? And I said, joy and gratitude were the things that I bring back. Gratitude, that expansion of gratitude that I felt for getting to live, my heart opened. It just expanded. There was a warmth, there was a heat, there was a radiant, expansive energy that I felt in my spirit form. And I know that that is one practice that we can also use regularly, gratitude. And it's shown that when we are in gratitude, our heart actually pumps more blood up to the brain. You know, we don't really understand how, but it happens. And then there's this whole idea of gratitude, like living through the heart space and not through the mind. Because when we're in gratitude, we're present, we're out of our thoughts, and we're calling in more of that high frequency, right? Hope that answers your question.
I want more, though. I want more. I'm
Yeah,
wondering what we can do, like a little homework assignment,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Is it to have some nice, gentle music playing and then perhaps create an intention
yeah, yeah.
and perhaps giving gratitude and then being in the present moment and then maybe just being carried away by that music? We want to feel something. And I know most of us don't want to have a near death experience because there's pain involved and we don't want to be kicked by a horse or anything like that. But we want to have these experience, some kind of a spiritual experience to know that there's something more. Can you help us with guide us through maybe a practice, maybe with music? Because I know music is your love, and everybody loves music. There's so much power in music, but a practice that we could start doing. And I know full well that when we start meditating, or even if we're long-time meditators, how busy the mind is. But just something that we could commit to, maybe doing a few times a week, maybe just one thing, and somehow tied in with music.
Absolutely. I think I can do even better. I have a
Okay.
singing bowl that I can bring over and I can walk people through a download of light. First, I want to talk about what you mentioned about intention, because that's the most important part of any practice that we do. What happens when we create an intention is we give a channel and an anchor for which our energy to flow through. So whatever people do, whether they're listening to music or meditating or doing some breath work, and I would recommend finding a piece of classical music that people enjoy without words, maybe a 2 to 5 minute piece of music. Create an intention of what they want to get from the experience. And to anchor the intention in even more deeply, start to imagine the positive manifestation of that intention and what they want to bring through the music. They want to really engage all of the senses, what it would look like, what it would feel like, what it would smell like, where they would be going, what they would be doing, who would be with them. And most importantly, the emotion of that actualization of that intention. By feeling the emotion and connecting it with thoughts, we can manifest, which is why it's so important to monitor our thoughts, right? When what we're thinking and even throughout the day, definitely what we're saying to ourselves. But with that intention in mind, lay down, put headphones on, still your body, and just listen to the music and allow your mind to take you wherever you need to go. You may feel like you enter a sleep state. You may start to see colors. You may start to see a vision. You may have messages come through, or it may just be a simple relaxation in the body. I feel music in my body when I hear it. And that's something that came back with me, but other people can do that too, where when I'm listening to the music, I notice where is it falling along my spine, my shoulders, my heart. Where do I feel the sound? And then just lay there and be fully present in the music. Fully present. Everything you feel, you taste, you smell, you see. And then when you come out of it, give a little bit of gratitude, hold gratitude in that space, release your intention intentionally, and move on with your day. And I would love to see what people think of that short little practice.
I think it's great. And then also being talking to our loved ones. I know they want to rest our minds that they are healthy, whole, and well. And there's different ways we can communicate. We've talked a lot about automatic writing and through dreams and taking a walk down memory lane with them and feeling those shifts. But to do it with music. So it would be great. And not that somebody has to book a date with your loved one, but I think it's more for us that
It
when
is.
we get into the practice, say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 o'clock, your loved one's like, okay, let's try this again, and bring in their love as well. Not that they're not always with us, but they can really have that intention to show up stronger. So we're doing it for us and we're doing it for them.
I love that you mentioned that because many people come to see me for that very reason, because they want to connect with a loved one who's passed and they want to know for themselves that they're in a great place. We held a workshop in Salt Lake City last week. I do this work with my sacred partner, Neil, and he is a facilitator of breath work and meditation. He leads people through the breath work, then I'll move into the bowls and we'll bring in light. We'll go through the music journey after that. In our workshop in Salt Lake City, one of the participants had come in because she wanted to see her father and she wanted a message that he was all right. And it was in that the processing of the imagery where she kind of raised her hand and said, I saw my father. And he came to me in a church that was really meaningful to me. It was this chapel in New Orleans that she was familiar with and it had sacred value to her. He came to her and he gave her a message and he told her, you are enough. This message was so powerful and it was everything that she wanted to hear, and she wanted to see him and know that he was okay. And just the fact that he came to her, he had this presence about him where she knew he is okay. He is great. He is still in my life and still connected to me. And what's really amazing is this experience of collective consciousness that always happens in these workshops. A woman across the room who had not met this woman, she actually said, I have to tell you, I know that church. I know that cathedral in New Orleans, and I was there in my imagery too, and I saw you with your father. And so the whole audience was like, wow, oh my goodness. And so there were tears and there was love and there was this collective consciousness that, again, always happens in our groups. And she wasn't the only one who saw her loved one. There were so many others too. But then a third participant in the kind of in between these two, actually, she said, I came here today for my own intention, right? I came here to kind of connect to my soul body, but I brought this bracelet with me and I knew it wasn't for me. And she picks up the bracelet. She's got it in her hand. It wasn't even on her wrist. She was holding it. And the bracelet said, you are enough. And she took it over and gave it to that woman who spoke. And we got a little video of that after the workshop because it's just an example of what happens every time we get together with a group. I mean, loved ones come through all the time as a beautiful way to show people I'm okay and you're okay. And we're still together. I'm still with you. I still love you. I'm still here. And Most of the time people actually come through because they're worried about a loved one that's passed, that may have passed through tragic circumstances or through their own hand. And they come to get that knowing for themselves. And that is beautiful to witness. It's truly beautiful to witness the healing that can come from that. And this simple practice that I outlined now is a simple way to start that process and to start to give that time and energy to connect. And again, I'll take you through the bowls experience too, and maybe something will come through for people who are watching or listening.
That'd be great. Now, to find out your upcoming events, is that at wellnessmusictherapy.com, your website?
It is, yes.
Okay.
I'm more active on Instagram. I have an email list that people sign up to hear about my events. We do lots of local events in the San Diego area. We do private events as well. So we travel when people have a group that would like to work with us. We travel wherever and we have a plan to go to Canada next year. So if anyone's interested, we'll come to you. I do private sessions online, one-on-one, on over Zoom as well. And I have a meditation group every Wednesday for people who just want to be part of a donation group where they can start to practice this, calling in the light. And messages do come through for people in the meditation group too. It's a 15 to 20-minute meditation every Wednesday morning at 9 Pacific Standard Time. I go live on Facebook. It's donation based, so people just give what they feel they want to give. And it's a beautiful community as well.
So thank you for sharing all that. So what did you want to do with the sound bowl? Let's get creative. This is fun.
I'm gonna go grab my sound
Go
bowl right
grab this.
now, and
You go
I
grab it. I'll entertain the troops. This is fun. It's something a little different. We know that our loved ones are around, but we human beings, we want to feel it. We want to trust it. And just to find a different way to do it through sound, I think is incredible. So I don't know too much about the sound bath, about singing bowls. I know I like the sound. I know we like Ellen, and we'll see where she goes with this.
okay. Here we are. So what I like to do is start with intention. I have an oil here. I'm putting it on my hand just to kind of anchor that intention in and create that association between this powerful technique and what I want to bring through. So as I sit in this moment and I breathe deeply, I'd like you to connect with the out breath. You can close your eyes and relax. Allow the out breath to be twice as long as the in breath. And as you focus on your intention, imagine what you'd like to bring through. See yourself walking the path of your intention. Connect to your higher presence and feel that collective love around you. And start to imagine who would be with you, where you'd be going, what you'd be doing. And imagine that perfect version of you just above the top of your head, that which is fully connected to source energy. Feel this being shining down on you with the most radiant love. And as you imagine this radiant energy just flowing around you, protecting you, encapsulating you with love, imagine that a light shines down from the heart of this loving being onto the top of your head. Open your mind to receive this light, allowing it to flow into the tissues of the brain, traveling the channels of the tissues of the brain, lifting each cell in the brain to higher consciousness and connection to the all-knowing presence. Feel the love flowing through, pulling away any and all old patterns, discord, wounds, painful memories. Feel them being replaced by this light. And witness the water element within your body transporting this light. The brain fluid becoming this light, pulling light deeper and deeper in waves of fluid motion. Feel the fullness of the light at the back of your mind and your brain stem moving down your spinal cord. Feel the cushion of light around each vertebrae. And feel it traveling to the very tip, the end of your spine. imagine a spiraling energy as this light pulls out what no longer serves, spirals it back up to your presence, requalifies it, and sends it back down again. Feel the fullness of the light behind your closed eyes and hold your closed eye gaze looking at the back of the third eye. Feel an activation of light as you pull more light into the eyes, clearing the eyes, moving it into the sinuses and behind the ears, into the temples. Feel the fullness of light moving down into the mouth, softening the back of the tongue, relaxing everything it touches. Feel the light flowing down into the neck now, imagining you can swallow it down, this luminous light presence. Feel it filling the hollow at the base of your neck, traveling across your shoulders, down your arms, filling the hollows of your elbows, swirling into your wrist, into each finger, each joint in each finger, and even in between the fingers, that little web of skin. Feel the light traveling into the palms of the hands, activating the hands with a powerful vibration and force of light, purification, peace, love, unconditional love. And bring that light now into the heart, seeing it flow into the chambers of the heart and witnessing as the heart transports this light through the bloodstream wherever it needs to go. Feel your body lifting into the consciousness of light as the points of light in your body become alive and vibrational, as if they hold their own vibration that is connected to that higher self. As if the golden central sun is pouring in, feel that light flowing into the top of your abdomen. So much light filling your body that it just pushes out any and all impurities, flooding into and behind the belly button, activating that center for compassion and self-nurturing, healing. Feel the fullness in the base of your spine, the fullness in the pelvic floor, and let this light move down your legs, out through the soles of your feet. Feel the light flowing into the earth, as if you are connecting heaven to earth through this process, and your own light is being magnified every instant of this experience, and your intention is going out to heal that intention for all on this planet. And you can see the rejuvenation of the earth, the regeneration, the life force, the higher vibration, and feel the earth receive your light. Perhaps even sending your light into the core of the earth now for greater connection. And see the earth take your light and send it back up to your presence in a powerful triad of healing and light. You are the conduit of light. You are light. I am light. I am love. From this place, imagine that you can release your intention into the light and stay open to whatever comes through. You might see colors or have body sensations. You might see loved ones past or guides, angels, healers. You might even feel body emotions. Just stay with your experience, noticing what you notice. And realize that everything in this place has wisdom and knowledge. Feel your heart filling with gratitude now for whatever came through, knowing that you can return to this at any time by simply recalling the images and process that came to you today. And as you settle, imagine what wisdom do you want to bring back with you to your waking world? And hold on to that for a moment before opening your eyes again. Take a deep breath.
Wow, that was quite peaceful. And the little message to myself was I need to spend more time in the stillness of my mind.
Oh,
Anybody else out there have very, very busy minds all the time? It's to really bask in that stillness. Thank you so much for doing that, Ellen.
my pleasure. And there's so much that could come through that process. There's meaning in colors and animals, there's meaning in nature. Water is cleansing. And it's a practice, right? We need to practice stilling the mind. And sometimes this practice is simply letting thoughts go as they come through. We just simply let them go. This constant process of breathing, letting the breath be our grounding presence. And so, yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
That's great. In a minute, I want to ask you about your book, Waking Up in Heaven, because I know there's practices in there. It's not just you telling your near-death experience. But I just got this image of you as a young, like a little bud of a rose,
Oh,
and then it turns pink, right? And so that time of your near-death experience was just this real tight little pink bud. And then just through these years, just how much you've opened up. And so even though that experience happened, then you're being divinely guided and the rose is open, it's fragrant, and there's also a fragrance of music. And that's a really hard thing to explain, but it just feels like you saw those little musical notes.
yeah.
It's just this fragrance for sharing with the world. So you really touched my heart with that. And then also just seeing how moved you've gotten knowing that this feeling of love, this unconditional love, is available and wanting it to share it with people. So I really commend you for that. So, with that, tell us a little bit about the book and what people can find in that.
I absolutely will. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that you brought up rose, which has spiritual significance that I want to share with the group, because when a message comes through for one, it's a message for all. So you mentioned rose as part of my journey and this beautiful kind of illustration of how I've developed, but it also has meaning for others. So when you see a rose, it means that we're connecting through unconditional love in relationship. That's kind of what the energy of the frequency of rose plant. And I work a lot with plant frequency. It includes relationships with the self, the partner, our work, and the divine. Even small amounts of rose or rose imagery can help release fears associated with trust and intimacy, and will help us to integrate our male and female energies to become more whole and balanced. And so, because you brought the rose through, and this is kind of how my work works, images have meaning, plants have meaning. And so thank you for sharing that. That is a message for all. And anyone who can imagine a rose while they listen to music after you brought that up would be really cool.
Thanks.
But yes, I would love to talk about my book. It's Waking Up in Heaven, Living with Purpose Through Afterlife Wisdom. I share in this book the mystical experiences that have happened to me, including one where I saw angels when I was working with a group, and they were in different formations, right? They would come sometimes in circles, they would come individually, they would be in stoic rows where they're holding a staff and they had this sash on. And I asked the universe, so what does this mean? Knowing that my human is not going to know it. I said, I release this to God. What does this mean when these beings come through in different formation? Well, the next day, a woman called me and she said that she had seen my near-death experience 3 years before. She was loosely connected with the International Association for Near-Death Studies, but she said, I was told by the masters to call you, and now is your time to share it. And little did she know, she found me in a time in my life where I was about to expand, like you said, that rose. I was about to really, truly step into my spiritual path, but I didn't know it yet. In a matter of weeks, I was going to do that through a divorce that I wasn't expecting and that was heartbreaking for me at the time. It really took me out of my ego, like what I thought I was, as a mother and a wife, and had identified that way and had kind of lost my way on my spiritual path. So she called me and she invited me to go to this conference, and I went to the conference, and then she kind of walked up to me when we met the first time and handed me these 3 spiritual books that were 100 years old or more. And I received these books, and she said, these are going to tell you what the angels have been trying to show you. And so that was one of many mystical experiences that I outline in this book that have kept me on my path and reminded me that we are always guided. And so through my process of reawakening over and over, first through my near-death experience and then through the unexpected life circumstances changes that came from the divorce, I created these exercises at the end of every chapter, gratitude practices, even when we're having a very difficult time or we're in the dark night of the soul, which is our kind of our invitation to go through contrast in order to find ourselves again, to release the identification of the ego so that we can find our authentic light. And so I do that. I have some journaling exercise, life reflection exercises, gratitude. There's abundance and manifestation practices. I was able to manifest sacred partnership. I mean, I created a life map and it was very specific to the love that I wanted to bring through. And I learned to love myself and realize that I am enough. This whole process I went through that actually worked. 10 days after I created this life map with this vision of this partner, Neil showed up in my life, and turns out 20 days before that, he had completed an abundance map of his own. So we were both calling each other in. So I talk about that and these mystical experiences, and there's exercises at the end with breath work, everything people could ever think of to raise their frequency and understand their connection to source even more. And I'm happy to share it. Thank you for inviting me to talk about it. It's on Amazon and everywhere. And of course, Jack Canfield, he is a mentor on this book. He's the reason I wrote the book, because I gave him a session of this process that I just shared with you today. And he heard about my story and said, you just need to write 80 pages. Please write 80 pages. And 2 years later, with his help, I did just that. So that's my
Oh,
book.
congratulations. It sounds like a handbook for living or handbook for the soul, something like that. The book is called Waking Up in Heaven, Living with Purpose Through Afterlife Wisdom, and her website, wellnessmusictherapy.com. And then in the show notes, wherever you are watching or listening, I have your links to social media, etc., etc. Ellen, any last words for the time we are together today?
Oh, I just want to give gratitude for being here. First of all, thank you for having me on. This was an honor and a pleasure. And for anyone out there who's listening, please know that you are always connected to light. It is always available to you. There is so much for us on the other side. It's almost as if this is the illusion and the other side is reality. You are held, you are loved, you are important, you have purpose. This life, it might be challenging at times, and there are things that we go through, but you are always held. And there's a higher being that's always with you. And I just want to acknowledge and bring that forward for anyone listening today.
Ellen, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Loved it. And it's different. We like a little different. And to our listener or our viewer, a reminder that my home base is wedon'tdie.com. If you don't yet have a free PDF copy of my book and you'd like it, at the bottom of that homepage at wedon'tdie.com is a place for you to enter your name and your email address. It says you get the first few chapters of my book. The truth is, it's the whole book. Don't want anything to stop you from having the information that I know, especially chapter 10 is about how to survive grief. I think probably most of us have experienced the pain of grief, and there's nothing worse. To me, there's nothing worse. It can come from a death of a loved one, a breakup of a relationship, and so much more. There really are some great tools to move through it and also to understand it. Also, I have this show, plus I have Shades of the Afterlife on iHeartRadio. That is a best of the afterlife. So there's some interviews, but mostly it's me sharing stories, sharing what's happening. I'm pretty excited now, over 200 episodes. And that has become the #1 most downloaded afterlife podcast in the world. So that's a big deal. So I'm going to keep on giving with great interviews here on We Don't Die, and then stories on Shades of the Afterlife. So, in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain. I'm always so happy to be your host on We Don't Die. I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is important. And as we were talking about those contrasts and those tough times, you never know when that thing you're going through right now, as tough as it may be, could lead to the best thing in your life, which was the case for me. I've never hit as deep and dark a place as when my dad died and relationships were severed with my siblings. It was awful. And here we are 14 years later together with a community of hundreds of thousands. And I would have never thought that was possible. So I'm a happy girl. I love to share. And just like Ellen, we've got a little taste of something and we want to share it with everybody. So I want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.